How did your parent confess to the doctor while high on anesthesia that made you want to disappear? My mom was absolutely terrified of anesthesia. Not the surgery, not the pain, not the recovery. No, she was terrified she'd say something embarrassing. For 2 straight weeks before her surgery, she kept asking the same question. What if I accidentally reveal secrets? I told her the same thing every time. Mom, nobody cares. People wake up asking for juice and blankets. Huge mistake. Because apparently my mother treated anesthesia like a live podcast with no supervision. She had shoulder surgery last month, nothing major. But when they wheeled her into recovery, the nurse smiled at me and said she should wake up in a few minutes. And the second my mom opened her eyes, she looked directly at me, completely horrified, and whispered, "Oh no." I leaned closer. What? She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and said, "Did I flirt with the surgeon?" The nurse immediately turned around trying not to laugh. "Mom, you were unconscious. That's not an answer." Then she gasped. "Oh my god, what now?" "What if I called him handsome?" The nurse snorted. Actually snorted. "Mrs. Parker," she said carefully, "that's very common after anesthesia." My mom looked devastated. So I did flirt with him. Then suddenly, she narrowed her eyes at me suspiciously. "Wait, what? How do I know you're really my daughter?" I blinked. "Mom, no, seriously," she whispered. "You could be anyone." The nurse was losing the battle not to laugh. "Okay," my mom said dramatically. "If you're really my daughter," she pointed at me weakly, "tell me my biggest secret." I froze, because there were medical staff everywhere. "Mom, maybe not here." "Aha!" she shouted. She hesitated. Then my mother looked at the nurse and said, "This woman could be an intruder." "Mom, I literally drove you here. Smart criminals plan ahead." The nurse had fully given up at this point. She was openly laughing into a clipboard. Then my mom suddenly got emotional, like genuinely emotional. She grabbed my hand and whispered, "I need to confess something." And instantly I got nervous, because that tone, that's never good. "Mom, what did you do?" She looked around the recovery room dramatically, then leaned closer. "I lied on one of the medical forms." The nurse perked up immediately. My mom whispered, "They asked how often I exercise, and I counted shopping at Target." The nurse almost dropped the clipboard, but she wasn't done. "And when they asked how many glasses of wine I drink per week," she paused proudly, "I answered per week, Mom. And technically I don't smoke," she added. I stared at her, because vaping is different. "You vape?" "Only when your father watches golf loudly." At this point the doctor walked in. Perfect timing. Tall, polite, probably rethinking his career choices. "How are we feeling today, Mrs. Parker?" My mom looked at him, completely mesmerized. Then she whispered to me, "Oh no." "What now?" "He's even hotter up close." I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. "Mom!" The doctor tried to stay professional. "Your surgery went very well." My mother smiled dreamily. "You have very trustworthy eyelashes." The doctor blinked. "I appreciate that." Then she suddenly pointed at him and announced, "You know who you look like?" I covered my face immediately. "George Clooney if he paid taxes on time." The nurse burst out laughing. The doctor actually turned red. And somehow, my mother still wasn't finished. She looked at the doctor very seriously and said, "Can I confess one final thing?" "Sure," he said cautiously. My mom took a deep breath. "I once told my husband I was fine." The whole room went silent. When I was actually mad for 3 straight days. The doctor nodded slowly. "Honestly, that one might require a specialist." Even I started laughing. 2 hours later, the anesthesia finally wore off. My mom looked around calmly and asked, "So, did I say anything embarrassing?" The nurse immediately walked out of the room to avoid eye contact. And I just stared at my mother for a long moment before saying, "Mom, you sexually harassed a surgeon with compliments about his eyelashes."